Your difference in ideology with someone should not make you or force you, or let me say, even the media indoctrination force you to end up hating someone where you end up not acknowledging their brilliance.
Definitely.
When somebody is brilliant, sometimes you must be able to separate your hatred of them. Maybe hatred is a strong word.
Yes,
I didn't say you hate, but your disagreements with them must not overshadow the fact that you
Definitely.
must acknowledge their brilliance.
Especially because in order for you to understand why maybe you dislike them or their power or how you're going to respond to them, you need to be able to acknowledge their brilliance and their success.
But do you acknowledge Msholozi's brilliance in politics?
Certainly, that man is brilliant. That man is a master strategist, and if not only would anyone be stupid not to know that, but in order to feel like you're going to succeed or you have a shot of maneuvering around him, you need to know who you're up against, right? So definitely, there's no doubt about that.
Okay, what do you think of the move of Dr. John Hlophe?
Of him going on the judicial services?
Number one,
Yeah.
Msholozi picking him and taking him to parliament,
Yeah.
to lead the party.
Yeah.
And then number two, him obviously being elected at the JSC.
I mean, I fundamentally don't have an issue with the MKP selecting John Hlophe, but if the sense is that he's the most effective person that can lead the party, and that Zuma feels that way, then by all means, I have no issue with that. I think it also is a nice headline maker. It's a nice political move, right? And I think it's a very clever political move to have him on that judicial services committee, because those are the same people that appointed former judge Dr. Hlophe, and now of course it's creating controversy, and we're always saying he's like former President Zuma is always finding new ways to test the law and the constitution, which I actually quite enjoy, and now they're testing the limits of that. So I think it's a brilliant political move. I think I actually can't wait to see what Dr. Hlophe does on that committee, how he uses his own experiences and expertise, because we mustn't, sometimes the media and the way his story is rolled out, they've painted him you'd be quick to think that he's not bright, but it's important to remember that there's a doctor in front of his name. So he's a brilliant mind. So I'm very excited to see what he's going to do.
Because for the MK to also outlive the leader, it has to build structures, branches. It has to build good leadership at the top as well.
Yeah.
Because we've really been blessed to have had these leaders who have lived up until so old. I mean, Utatu Matiba died at the age of what, like 93? I think it is 90 somewhere around.
Yeah, 95. 90, yeah, it was around 90. Yeah.
Great business leader. The late great Tata Maponya passed on at what, like 98. It's always great to have these leaders who live on up until those ages. I mean, Utatu Mbeki is what, like 80, what? 83? 81.
Yeah, 81.
No, I attended his 81st birthday.
So he's the same age as
I think it's 83.
Yeah. So
how old is Zuma?
they're the same age. So whatever age President Zuma is.
Are they the same age?
They're like a couple of months apart.
Oh, wow.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
But then again, I'm looking forward to be seeing what other leaders he keeps on appointing in terms of leading the party to its success.
Yes.
Talking about a succession plan. Your opinion?
Yeah, and for me, it's not just it's one formalization, right? Because I've had a conversation about the kind of how they formed. Some people might call it kind of guerrilla campaigning, and that's not a bad thing. It means it's like the way they went about it was on the ground, it was grassroots, it was very quiet. They were building a mass movement in KZN very quietly under the noses of everybody, and they came out effective and they won.
Wrongly in KZN nationally, though.
Nationally,
yes, they did better in KZN.
Yes, most effectively in KZN, right?
Yeah.
And that's where most of this grassroots work was taking place.
Yeah.
So, but now it's important that when you are a movement, you need to transition into a political party and formalize yourself. So I'm very encouraged by the active steps that they're taking, the decision that they finally went to parliament, the decisions that, this is how they're going to structure their operations. They've taken on they've accepted and taken on the role and responsibility of being a serious party, of being a party that people have placed trust in and their votes in. it's very important in a democratic society to live up to the democratic mandate that people have provided you. So I think that these decisions and these actions are a very good sign for their supporters and their voters.
Beautiful interview that, sorry to come in there, that Nobala Umbalula had with Ulizeka from the Sunday Times.
Yeah.
But he also mentioned that at some point they knew that Ubabu Zuma was a force. And then he says they intentionally went all out to try and undermine him, to try and use constitutional structures, even the courts, to try and, undermine MK. Obviously, given the MK's history, that it was born within the ANC as a military wing of the ANC. But now moving forward, he also acknowledges and he says the MK took a huge chunk of their votes, talks about 2 million plus votes or so.
Yes.
And then he says he did try and get in contact with Ubaba. He was not successful in getting to speak with Ubaba. And then they're saying, and then what's going to happen next? Because he does mention, we're sort of sold this message that Ubaba had a plan, sort of had wanted to save the ANC from the outside, and that's why we tried to reach out, and we thought maybe there was a plan, maybe we could speak some things, but right now it's water under the bridge. We've passed that move. We are now in the GNU. It's a new era. We are moving forward. What do you think is the future of the ANC in South African politics?
I think that's a very big question. In general, my view is that the ANC, historically speaking, the ANC is not going anywhere. The ANC, the way maybe it functions and its reach is going to change, but I don't see a replacement for the ANC. Even if the ANC goes into opposition benches for quite some time, the ANC will re-emerge, and I'll tell you why. The ANC has, in terms of a political party and a political force, it has the broadest breadth but depth in some of our communities, in some of the most rural parts of our country. Its brand and its legacy is that when they say, too big to fail, generally they speak about the ANC that way. But what's changing now is, of course, how it's going to navigate its new geographical splits and different, and strengths at different places. It's gonna change how it works, the ANC. But I think the ANC is one party that understands power, that's not afraid of power, and knows how to use power. And I think it goes back to what SG Mbalula was saying about understand the instruments that they can use in order to achieve their goals. That's an understanding of political power and institutions that sometimes a lot of other political actors, whether it's parties or movements, they don't quite always understand. So for me, I think the ANC, how they fill their role and operate is going to evolve as things do, but the ANC is not going anywhere as a political force in this country, at least not in the next 10 years, I don't think.
Still focusing on the interview, guys, Nopala. I like the fact that he was very honest in that interview, and he spoke. And he also spoke against members fighting for positions. As a lot of people are saying right now, there's actually two ANCs. There's the ANC Yaga Ramaphosa, and then people are saying there's another ANC that is emerging. This is what people are saying. The ANC of Oba Paul Mashatile, and then now they're even putting Ubud Banyaza in the mix. Your take?
It's always funny to me, in the history of the African National Congress.
Factionalism, yeah.
Factionalism, they always speak about factionalism, anti-factionalism. I think it's its obligation as SG to be against factionalism. But we need to get to a point where we understand that being in a political party, being in a society, factions are inevitable, because factions are representations of differing views. Right? And different views, different interests. There's no broad or significant political parties where factions don't exist. What we need to be encouraging, I think, is that there needs to be healthy kinds of competition between competing views and competing parts of a party and organization. That's what the message, whether it's in the ANC, whether it's in the EFF, whether it's in the MK, whether it's just general in society, it's about how do we manage difference, how do we manage opposition, how do we treat people as our adversaries or our opponents, and not evil opposition, and not people that we want to really kind of undermine on a humane level. I think that's the learned political culture that must change, and I think we are changing. So I don't think people should be alarmed that if it is true Deputy President Mashatile represents the head of another emerging faction, and President Ramaphosa has his own people, right? It's a natural thing. It's never going to go away. It's about how they relate to each other. And right now, by all accounts, the ANC looks internally pretty cohesive. But we will see. Local government elections are going to be a big test, because that's going to be, as they said, the competition for positions, and therefore regions, and therefore money. That's I think fundamentally what it goes to. So. That's where my thinking is. I'm not scared of factionalism, but I'm scared of people mistreating how they mistreating other people. That's what we should be concerned with.
The ANC voters punished the ANC in these elections. They dropped from 57 to about 40%. Why would the ANC still keep a leader that has lost so much votes, which is Ubaba Ramaphosa? What do you think?
Well, one, the ANC. Most importantly, you need to understand the ANC has just come out of an elective conference, right? The year before this election, right? The ANC, and the ANC president that was elected was Cyril Ramaphosa, right? So the ANC membership wants Cyril Ramaphosa as president. And in the history and tradition of the ANC, a president is generally only recalled after a national conference has elected a new ANC president. Because if to get rid of President Ramaphosa, you are going to be asking him to resign, not just as state president, but as president of the ANC. And I don't think that's a very realistic prospect at this point in time. So I don't see, the NEC would not have a mechanism to get rid of Ramaphosa as easily, one. Two, and people must remember that when we talk about recall, right, the recalling of a president like President Mbeki and President Zuma, constitutionally speaking, there's no such mechanism. How they were able to achieve that was that the ANC had a majority in parliament, and through that the ANC could threaten both President Mbeki and President Zuma that they would support a motion of no confidence in him in parliament in order for him to get him to resign. But because the ANC does not have a majority in parliament, President Ramaphosa, in fact, is even more difficult to get rid of if people want to get rid of him. So I think that the ANC must introspect. The ANC will likely hold President Ramaphosa accountable. Well, he's already in his second term, so the ability to hold him accountable is quite limited. Yeah.
Two last questions. We saw Gogo Helen Zille emerge out of the woodworks. I mean, the leader has been John Steenhuisen, and we do know that Gogo Helen Zille has been the federal chair, but she had been lurking behind the scenes and obviously leading the party from behind the scenes, her and Tony Leon. But with these negotiations and talks as a JNU, with some of the interviews that she has done, with the DA taking center stage in these government of national unity conversations, and the ANC deciding to have those conversations with the DA, and obviously seeing the Gauteng constituency rejecting Ugogo and the DA, and also opening up to want to work with other parties. What do you have to say, or what do you see? How do you see the future of this GNU unfolding with the DA taking center stage over and above other parties with the ANC?
I think what's happened now in Gauteng was an important development in being able to, in order to temper and to control, but basically whip the DA into order and place the DA into its correct position within the GNU in terms of power and influence. If you've noticed, after what's happened in Gauteng, Helen Zille is a lot more silent. Helen Zille has understood that the ANC is not going to sit and let itself be abused beyond a certain point, beyond its own interests. And Helen Zille, I think, just going back to your point about her emergence, sometimes I disagree with the view that she's just come out of nowhere. It's just that she has been able to occupy a lot more space.
Sorry to say this, but she did say about 3 years ago, or maybe was it just before COVID? She did say that she was resigning. Yes, we've always known she's federal chair, she's behind the scenes. Obviously, that is her party with Tony Leon and leading from behind the scenes. But all along, it's been John Steenhuisen that has been in the forefront of leading the party, speaking on behalf of the party, but she hasn't done so many interviews in quite some time. And in these interviews, as much as she would make sense on some of the points, but you can also sense a sense of rhetoric that is sort of a little bit disrespectful, and I think a lot of black people were sort of turned off by her rhetoric.
Yes, 100%, 100%. So in terms of these how the DA works, a lot of people need to, I think the DA works a lot differently with, let's say, how the ANC is structured. John Steenhuisen is the